welcome to this show. We are going to go into how to lead your organization from sales-led growth to marketing-led growth. And we're going to talk about what that is. But there is just like one big takeaway that I want you to get from this little discussion that we're having today. And it is, of course, first you're going to understand like the transformation that is going on in B2B go-to-market happenings and things and processes, because there is some turbulence in the air right now. But what I really want you to walk away with is a step-by-step system on how to lead this transformation, okay? And even though we're going to be talking about marketing-led growth, you're going to realize that this is actually beyond marketing. So this is in fact a go-to-market thing that is bigger than marketing and concerns the entire go-to-market strategy. But it is something that is typically done best by marketing. And in our experience, it's marketing who usually takes the lead, but it doesn't matter if you're not a marketer, okay? Obviously, we're speaking first of all to B2B marketers, and there are several of you who signed up who are with technology companies with high average contract value, and your in-house B2B marketers, and that's awesome. So this training is definitely for you. Also, if you are a commercial director or a revenue leader, chief revenue officer, or anybody in high up in the ladder in sales, this training is also for you, because you will also have experienced all the turbulence that's going on with go-to-market approaches and past tactics failing and the sales-led approach kind of not working. And I was also super happy to see a number of consultants and freelancers and agencies sign up who are in the B2B sphere. And it's great that you're here, because this process that we're going to be showing you that has worked for several clients of ours and us, and for all the case studies that I'm going to be showing you in this little training. So there is huge, enormous demand for people who are leading organizations through this change and implementing sprints that will help companies go from sales-led growth to something much more meaningful, to marketing-led growth, which works a whole lot better. So if you are a consultant, a freelancer, an agency, welcome. This is for you, and I hope you can implement this for not just for yourselves, but also for your clients. Now, a mercifully brief introduction about yours truly. My name is Dan Rennie. I started a little B2B marketing agency, ABM agency or consultancy called Klear just 2 years ago. And what you see on the right-hand side of the screen here is not our company, but of our very first client. So our very first client is someone I've been freelancing with for 3 years, and they were the first client of the company when I founded Klear just over 2 years ago. And we worked together for 3 years. And guess what? This just came out that they are number 91 on the Financial Times 1,000 fastest growing European companies, which I couldn't be more thrilled about. It's like when you're a coach and your trainees wins the Olympics. It's that type of feeling. So that ugly pink arrow right there is pointing at the company Infinite International. We got a case study about it. If you want, I can send it to you. But that's all you need to know about me right now, and the fact that I like mountaineering and skiing and all sorts of fun things in nature. Okay, now let's start out with what sales-led growth is and why it's not working and what's the problem with it. Okay, sales-led growth, simply put, is a sales-led motion where you're going to market looking for transactions, and this is dominating your go-to-market mechanism. It's characterized by cold outreach as a primary ways to enter accounts and companies. And it's been pretty typical of the entire, not just technology, but the B2B scene. So it's the same method that took IBM to great heights. And but the method has not evolved very much since 1949, when, people would dress up in suits and they would, send telefaxes to companies saying, hey, you need to talk to us because we have these great machines that make holes in papers. And they will take up half of your room, but they will also save you time. So it's the same approach that has been going on for ages, probably millennia. ever since, humanity's been around. And it's the transaction driven and the more aggressive type that is just, starting to not work. That's the problem with it. It still works, especially in less mature industries or in legacy industries, but especially when you go into technology and when you have decision makers who are Gen Y and Gen Z, then you're going to really struggle with that approach. And in this setup, marketing ends up becoming an order taker. Just like, all they will say is, do you want fries with that? Like, do you want an extra design with that? And sales is basically dictating everything. And marketing is just making pretty collateral or maybe delivering leads, but not really adding sufficient value. Okay. And again, what's the problem with this whole approach? It's not working. It's broken. And there are a couple of reasons for that, which you need to understand. And I bet you can guess several of these. Okay. And one is that competition is huge. It is intense, especially at the middle and the bottom of the funnel. So when you're trying to sell into companies, you're going to have to start to influence your buyers much, much earlier in the process. Okay. You cannot wait until they are in market ready to buy. You need to meet and engage them much, much earlier. And you need to do that in a non-personal way, meaning that you cannot have salespeople do that. So what's starting to not work is you cannot just call up companies anymore and say, hey, we got this great thing. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to learn about it? Do you want to come to an event? So that is starting to not really work. You need to be more nuanced and more scalable in doing that, okay? Because buyers just don't want to talk to you at this point, okay? If it's something that they can read, they can watch, they can listen to, then they want to read, watch, and listen to it and not necessarily talk to a human being at that point. And what we see and what you're going to see in the many case studies that I've had coming up for you is that companies that generate demand just win. It's as simple as that. If you generate demand, you're going to win. Great. Some numbers that, yes, competition is getting more fierce. So if you look at the spending on marketing technology, it's freaking scary. So between 2020 and 2024, it is set to nearly double. Okay. And we're talking about 4 years. And it's in 2020, the spending was huge. So almost $5 billion. And what this tells us is that companies are using technology to meet prospects earlier in the process and talk to buyers earlier in the process and then activate them better. They're using all sorts of shenanigans and artificial intelligence and whatnot. It's another story that most companies don't use the technologies at all or don't use them well and don't have them integrated. And they're wasting a lot of money on it. But this just goes to show you that there's such huge interest in getting better at go-to-market that you got to take this stuff seriously. Okay, and I promised a few mini case studies for you, and one is from a tiny little company called Snowflake, which set the record as the biggest IPO in software history ever. That was a few years ago. And what was behind that success? Obviously, it's complex, but one of the things that was behind that enormous growth was actually account-based marketing and the shift in their go-to-market strategy that went towards marketing. And if you Google Snowflake ABM or Snowflake account-based marketing, you'll see articles coming up, like interviews with their marketers. And you'll actually be able to read articles on how they shifted to account-based marketing and how sophisticated a marketing mechanism they have built up. I can't go into the details right now because, that would be another webinar in itself, but it's really a beautiful story of a technology company who was already doing well. So I'm not saying like ABM saved them, but they were already doing well. And then they switched on the ABM engine and it just blew them out of the water. Okay, so what is marketing-led growth? Now you can guess that it's much more than, putting marketing tactics in front and having marketing dominate the go-to-market process, although that is certainly part of it. But I prefer to define it as a growth mindset and a strategy where customer insight drives engaging buyer experiences. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. A simpler way to say that is you are not transaction oriented in your go-to-market strategy, but you are value giving in your go-to-market strategy. So you're focused on providing value as early in the buying process as possible, preferably before even the buying process actually starts. So you meet the buyers even before they become buyers, very early in their process, and you are centered around giving value at each and every stage of the buying journey. And that's how you will win. So you're not transaction oriented, but you'll actually get more transactions by being value oriented. Okay. And by the way, I'm going to tell you a secret. I don't like the name marketing led growth. It just seems to be working really well, because when I was posting about this topic on LinkedIn, like it clicked for everybody when I was using marketing led growth. But what really we should be talking about is value driven growth. Okay. So being value centered as opposed to being transaction centric. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Marketing led growth in B2B. What does it consist of? So, on the one hand, you have ongoing qualitative and quantitative customer research. So that's got to be a component. Okay. You've got to be the best in your market, in your category, at understanding your customer. Number two, you've got to be maximizing the buying experiences, meaning that you have to give a heck of a buying experience. And, you don't have to be thinking B2C type amusement parks and stores, but the B2B equivalent of that. And don't be afraid to take ideas from the B2C world. But it's really just like in competitive B2C markets, B2B is becoming similar in this sense that it's the buying experience that you can provide at scale that tends to win in the marketplace. Okay. Traditionally, buying experience meant corrupting people and buyers and, taking them to Vegas and taking them to fancy hotels and giving them gifts, hoping that, they will end up buying. Now that sort of behavior is no longer working, or you have to be super careful with it because it's borderline corruption. So thankfully that sort of behavior is not working, but that doesn't mean that you can't be providing great and engaging experiences that give value. Okay. Let's just focus on giving value in the buying experience. There's got to be a close collaboration between marketing and sales. That's no news. And it is actually a culture. So it's a mindset. It's more than just a strategy. It's got to be a mindset or a way of working, or just a mindset. Okay. So again, it's not a set of tactics. It rests on creating demand and being awesome and giving value. And it's a mindset. It's a culture. And with that, I've got a second little case study for you. The power of community for sales. There's this little company called Outreach.io. They're at around, 60 to 70 million right now. And what gave them a huge boost was that they have they are a sales software. Okay. So they help you do cold outreach and warm outreach. Typical sales-led stuff. And the reason I like this case study is because this, by definition, sales-centric software and sales-centric company is actually kicking ass using something that is totally marketing-led and marketing first. And that's what's driving their growth, which is community. And what they did very cleverly is that they actually purchased a community, the most successful and biggest sales community online at the time, Sales Hacker. And for an undisclosed sum of money, they purchased the entire community of God knows how many sales professionals, 30,000, 50,000, I don't know. And they did a good job not ruining it. So they kept the name, kept the vibe, kept everything, but they sort of attached the community, the Sales Hacker community, to their brand and to their company in a way that didn't ruin the community, but actually assisted the rise of outreach. And they haven't looked back since. Yeah, so the last time I looked, they were at around 60 or 70 million per year in revenue. And you might be, or a couple of you are smaller companies, service companies, consultants. And I just wanted to let you know that what we're talking about totally works for the little guys as well, service companies. So it's not all big SaaS and IPO companies. This approach that I'm teaching you led us, a little service-based company, to close over 90,000 euros of ARR in at the first try, at the first run that we actually set this up. And what you see on the screen here is the result of an experiment we did in the summer. And this post is actually from the summer. Our results are like way better than this right now. So we are killing it with the marketing-led playbook that you're about to learn here. What happened in this very first run was that I went on vacation for most of July and August, and we did this play. And over the course of 48 days, we got 90K of deals and an additional 120K ARR in pipeline, in sales qualified pipeline. And the whole thing took 48 days, and I was on vacation for much of that, maybe 3 weeks. Yeah, it says 3 weeks over there. And I was doing this part-time because I had client projects and everything else. So what we're doing here, this approach that I'm teaching you, it's going to be like a pilot sprint. And this is just to show you that this little pilot sprint will bring results in a short amount of time that your greater organization can appreciate. And then you can use the early results to just run with it and scale it and make it bigger. Okay, what made this little success happen for our company were three things. Social selling, so generating demand on LinkedIn, doing a little bit of social selling, but really not that much. Interactive assessments, which I'm going to talk about later, and asset stacking, which you'll probably don't understand, but I'm going to also talk about it. Okay, so transitioning to a value-driven marketing-led approach has a few gotchas that you need to be aware of. So like preaching this thing is not enough. And you can't just ditch your existing operations, which may be pointless lead gen operations or, very low value added activities from one day to the other, because organizationally, these things don't work well. What you have to do is keep doing what you have been doing, maybe do a little bit less of it, just so people don't weird out over, things stopping and leads coming in. So you've got to keep doing what you have been doing, do a good job at it, and launch this new little pilot that we're going to be walking you through parallel to what you are doing already. Okay. And this is a huge, huge story in change management. I cannot stress this enough. If you are a consultant on this call, or if you're a leader of your marketing or VP or sales team, you will know that getting intellectual buying is not even half the story. It's, getting people to change their thinking and change their behaviors it's just a huge undertaking. Okay. And it's something that you've got to be managing, especially the expectations on an ongoing basis. So first you get buy-in, but buy-in is just an intellectual approval, or they'll be like, okay, here's $5,000, go and experiment with this. What you're planning to do sounds good. So Jimmy, go run with it. That's buy it. Okay. But you're not even like 10% of the way there in actual commitment. Then you have to set up goals and expectations and constantly be managing them as you're going down the line with this pilot project. And creating an appetizer or a proof of concept is basically the crux of this thing. So you're launching a campaign, a sprint. It's going to make a lot more sense when we go into the process, by the way. But just conceptually here, you're launching a POC, and then you go back and remanage expectations and keep everybody updated, and keep telling people that, okay, we're not changing the world from one day to the next. We want to create a viable experiment here Just make sure that it works on a small scale, not risking anything. And we're going to just take it from there. Okay. So change management in this whole thing is huge. Okay. Now I'll show you the process, and I'll show it to you with this ugly hand-drawn yellow drawing. Okay. The process for the go-to-market pilot campaign that you're about to learn is this. As I mentioned, it starts with demand generation. So you're posting on LinkedIn or any social network or any content distribution platform that you are comfortable on and that you have a presence in. You may want to add paid advertising. We almost always do. Okay. And after having built up some momentum, some anticipation, you will take your audience and give them value via trainings, articles, assessments, or other sorts of marketing assets that are interactive and that provide value for both their consumers, so your buyer, and for your company. Okay. And as you engage your buyers with these marketing assets here, and you should have several assets in place to maximize results, then you get people to consume more and to get more information about you through a content hub. And in the content hub, you provide deeper content. Okay. And so all the people who are interested in what you have to offer, who want to learn more, are invited into this very nifty content experience via a content hub. And the nice thing about content hubs is that you get to track who's consuming what to what length or degree or depth. Okay. And it gives you a lot of information on on what your buyer is doing. Okay. I'm sure many of you are familiar with content hubs. Okay, Don, good question. What are we using to create content hubs? We're using Paperflight, which is a pretty good software. Something even better, perhaps, that I like even more, but we just ended up going with Paperflight because it's somewhat cheaper. So it's easier to get it going with clients, is DocSend, which has been acquired by Dropbox. But if you're on HubSpot, for example, they will have this built in, but the features are not nearly as sophisticated as with a dedicated content hub. So Paperflight, let me type it here. Paperflight is what we use. It's around $50 a month. It's well worth it, not just for marketing, but for sales. So anytime we send out a proposal, anything that we want a prospect to look at, we put it on a content hub, and it'll provide a better content experience for them. And it'll provide us with a bunch of insight on what they're doing there with those documents and videos. Okay, so keep the questions coming, by the way. Okay, so we got the content hub, and we have, and once somebody has engaged and the content hub tells us that they're interested, then we can get sales to reach out to them. And that's when we activate them. Okay. So by this time we can, we know who they are. We know that they're digging into our stuff. We know they're interested. We know what they are interested in and what aspect. So we can be pretty confident with a sales outreach, which obviously is not like a hard sales outreach. It's usually, hey, what's up? You want to talk about this? But oftentimes what happens, and this is actually it's more often than not, what happens is that when people go through this process, so you take good care of them up front here in the beginning of the process with generating demand and giving them value up front. Then you take them through good marketing assets and you give them value there and you engage them. Then you take them to a content hub. What happens is that they end up coming inbound a lot of times. So the leads end up just, reaching out to you. But if they don't, and you see that they are engaging, then you can activate them. And you convert them and you upsell them. Okay. So this is the 1,000-foot overview, the 1,000-meter overview, I should say, of the process. And the two key things that I want to be focusing on right now for this particular sprint and campaign is the LinkedIn bit and the assessments or interactive quizzes, because they're super freaking powerful. Okay. This is just a LinkedIn post of, it's a funny thing because when I came up with this dichotomy of sales-led growth versus marketing-led growth, or sales-led GTM versus marketing-led GTM, I was at a cafe and I drew it on a napkin. I asked for a pen and a napkin, so I drew it on there and I posted it straight away to LinkedIn, and it ended up going wild and crazy. And that's what kicked this whole thing off, by the way. We launched a campaign around this, and that's how we funneled in this pipeline and these deals. And so it's just a nice story. It ended up going, like, I didn't have a lot of followers. I had like 2,500 followers, and this thing ended up going out to 20,000 impressions and 200 something likes. And so it was just crazy. It really resonated. That's why I said that I'm using the term marketing-led GTM, even though it should be value-driven GTM. Okay, so as I said, assessments really work well. And what we mean by assessments are basically simple quizzes that follow a very particular pattern and form and shape, okay? And here you can see one of our quizzes, which is for marketing and GTM people, which was, what is your shortest path to whale size deals? And whoever would take this quiz, first of all, they wouldn't take this quiz out of the blue. They would first engage with other content that we do. So the process was that we would post a lot on LinkedIn about this particular topic. And then in some of the posts, we would link to a self-assessment, which would give them value in the form of particular advice based on what they answer in this self-assessment. Okay. And as I said, assessments work really well to hook prospects whom you have been engaging with content. They're great hooks because, they induce curiosity, because if you get the title right, then it just makes people curious. It is totally not widely used still. Like, we use it and our clients use it, but not a lot of other companies use it. People have cheesy quizzes and like valueless assessments that just don't work and don't make any marketing sense. But real marketing assessments are they're rare, okay? They provide value because you're actually giving like detailed and valuable feedback based on the answers that they provide. And you get super valuable market research and account insight data out of them, okay? So these are just 4 reasons why we really love assessments. And how you want to set up the assessments, it's an art and a craft and a science at the same time. But the main pointers are that you want to be asking 5 to 12 prospecting questions, giving a brief assessment at the end, and super important, you've got to lead them into the next step based on what they answered. And you want to be blending in these assessments with other marketing assets, such as webinars, such as white papers, such as anything that your sales team does. So these shouldn't be standalone things. They should work in conjunction and in symphony. Yeah, I wanted to say. So synchronously with other marketing assets and sales motions. Okay, so these are just 4 important pointers. What can you expect? I showed you some numbers from our very first pilot campaign, but here's some more. This was basically the same campaign that I had shown you a screenshot of in that LinkedIn post. So on our very first try, we had 3 or 4 LinkedIn posts with a total reach of about 10,000. We got 240 people to start filling out the quiz. Very few of them actually completed it, so it wasn't a good assessment because a lot of people ended up dropping out. So only about 66 people completed. But, and this is a big but, we got 4 marketing qualified leads out of it. 2 of those turned into sales qualified leads. Initially, none of those turned into actual deals and paying clients. But then later, when we relaunched it, that's when we built that big amount of pipeline, and we got those few deals that ended up bringing in 90K per year. And the way to look at this is that when you start an initiative like this and you get 4 MQLs every time you post, you reach 10,000 people on LinkedIn, that's a pretty good deal. And actually a friend said this when I told him about the experiment. And without commentary, I showed him the numbers and he was like, I'll take 4 MQLs in a day for every like 3 or 4 LinkedIn posts. And we have pretty strict MQL definitions, so it's not just like they submitted a form and we call them an MQL. No, it's like an MQL is when they really show a lot of engagement with our content and they fit the ideal customer profile. So it's a pretty strict definition there. Oh, good question came in from Larry. I missed this, sorry. So how do you balance self-access to any content a prospect may want versus forcing them to register and possibly go away? This doesn't really come up as a question when we're doing this particular sequence, Larry, because what happens is that here we are leading them down the path. And when they're in a content hub, they have full access to stuff. But in order to enter the content hub, we're going to get their email addresses. Okay. I'm not the one who will be frightened by asking for an email address and gating content. And I guess your question is aimed at gating versus ungating content. That's what I'm assuming, but correct me if I'm wrong. I like to ungate a lot of things, and I like to gate the kinds of stuff that is of high value, where if they say, if I have a very compelling title and a very compelling hook, something that should be compelling for the ideal customer profile, and they're not willing to give an email address and because that puts them off, then I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, but I do agree with the initiative to just ungate as much as possible of your content. So we have detailed articles and we're planning on releasing detailed, like long cornerstone pieces of content with graphs and charts, totally ungated for people to access. And we use other mechanisms to capture email addresses, such as an assessment, such as a content hub, such as a webinar, if that makes sense. So because nobody objected to going into the steps, I'm going to show you how we do this. And if you're an in-house marketer or revenue professional, this will be useful for you. If you are a consultant or an agency, this will be useful for you as well, because this is coming from an agency or a consultancy in how we do this for clients, okay? So first of all, we treat this as a sprint, as an agile sprint, and we have clear outcomes. Number one, we want to get clear on your client acquisition strategy. So how do you get clients? How do you get buyers? Number two, we're going to do a demand creation boost. So it's going to be a complex program of LinkedIn posts in a particular fashion, following a particular pattern with particular post formats, mixing those up. And we're going for thought leadership and creating engaging content pieces just on LinkedIn. And as I said earlier, we usually add in paid advertising because it just makes things faster and better. We do that with small budgets, by the way. So 600 euros, 800 euros, that kind of money. Okay. So initially, like if you don't have a good presence, like you don't have a tested presence on LinkedIn and you haven't been doing a lot of paid advertising besides lead gen, then we want to start with small budgets. But these days, 600 to 800 euros or about $900 US dollars goes a long way in these initial sprints. Okay. And then we go to lead generation, and we do that by creating an interactive assessment or test or calculator. Okay, so that's outcome number 3. That will give you valuable market and account insight while having your leads actually self-assess and self-qualify themselves. Okay, so that's the beauty of this, is that when you get the answers to an assessment, you basically see, what people answered to your prospecting questions, basically. Okay. Number 4, there needs to be a follow-up sequence consisting of emails and LinkedIn direct messages, perhaps, to further prime your prospects. And I think the numbers just jumped there. Yeah, something weird happened. But anyway, then we will help you with planning and setting up a webinar, which will be the next piece of asset that you will stack on to the quiz. And the webinar and the quiz are going to work together to provide an even deeper content experience and interactive experience with your company, and push them down the pipeline so that sales qualified leads would drop out. And then obviously there is a follow-up sequence where you need to plan out what you're going to do with the people who are engaging with your content hubs and who look ready to be engaged by sales. Okay. So the components: number 1, getting clear on the ICP, crafting a content plan for the sprint. Number 3, you gotta start with about 10 LinkedIn posts. It's like 8 to 12, but we usually just go with 10 when we're planning. Then we are creating and deploying an interactive assessment. That was component number 4. Number 5, outlining a webinar and getting you prepped content-wise and setup-wise. Then we go into setting up registration, landing pages, the add to calendar components, and everything that you need for webinars. Then because webinars tend to work when they follow a particular set of steps and sequences, which includes priming messages and follow-up messages. So you need to write those, or you need to have somebody write those. Then there are 2 special follow-up messages that go out post-webinar. There's the Content Hub, which we have talked about. Okay. And then there is the sales motion, which you use to activate those leads or those prospects who are showing activity and who fit your ideal customer profile. Okay. Dawn, you're asking, are the LinkedIn posts on your client's company page or posted by someone at the company? Excellent question. And the answer to that is that we prefer to have one of the leaders of the company take up this role. So it's the former. Of course, they will have a company page, and everything we do for a personal profile, we can duplicate in a tweaked version, in a tweaked fashion for the company page, because why not do that? But ultimately, the way LinkedIn works is that personal profiles get a lot bigger reach and a lot bigger engagement than company profiles. So we're focusing on personal profiles, if that makes sense. The follow-up question to that would be, what if there's nobody who has an active presence and an active following on LinkedIn? Then the answer is that we go in heavier with paid ads. And of course, paid ads will work with the company profile. So you sort of can, but you can't really use personal profiles for advertising on LinkedIn. So that's usually the company profile. So we just get around it with paid advertising. Okay. Now, in case you're wondering, if you're a consultancy, you can just see how much we do this for. If you are a company, then you can, here's what it costs. I'm going to show you the investment that our clients do for a sprint like this. What we do is we guarantee everything that you've just seen, these 3 major components. So the LinkedIn posts, the assessment, and the webinar set up in 26 calendar days. And then we hold your hand sort of for the follow-up and the activation section of the whole thing. Okay. So when sales gets involved after these 26 days, we stay around and we help with consulting on what to do and what not to do. Okay. So this thing takes 26 days from start to finish. Now, the value of having a system like this is easily into the 6 figures, possibly more, depending on your average contract value. because usually at the ACV levels that we're working with and our clients are working with, just one new client is will easily pay for itself. And not to mention that this system that you set up isn't like a one-time thing. It's not a one-time campaign. It's basically a process. It's an asset that you can tweak and scale and reuse as many times as you want, and you should. So like this is an initial campaign, a proof of concept, and if it works, you just add more fuel to it, make a few tweaks and add more fuel to it. So it's actually a mechanism that you're setting up here. And this is also a great mechanism to re-engage previously closed lost deals. And we've done that with success. So whenever we have a clever little campaign like this, the first thing we tell a client is, hey, do you have anybody whom you've lost to previously, recently, or even in the distant past, where the situation could have changed? And something like this, like an assessment or a webinar, is a great way to like rekindle the conversation. So this is something that helps with closed lost prospects as well. Okay. And what we do with Klear B2B is that we work with clients in long-term retainers, meaning that that's not true. We work on a month-to-month basis, and we don't have any long-term contracts, so people can quit whenever they want to. So we don't lock them into contracts, but we work on a month-to-month basis, and they pay the same amount of money each month, which ranges from 7 to 14.5K euros. And this just usually gets bundled in, and we we calculate like a month's worth of fees for this sprint. So depending on what they pay us, the value of this, or the price tag, would be anywhere between 7 and 14.5 thousand euros. Okay. Now your investment for this sprint, if you do decide to go with us, again, which is between 7 and 14.5K for a campaign like this. And even at that price tag, so again, like just one new deal down the line will easily like pay for it threefold. Okay, just at the ACVs that most of us play at. So you don't need a lot of things to go right to pay for this. Okay, and especially after you optimize and scale it, and not to mention that you get additional insight and intelligence through the survey, and that you keep getting that insight and intelligence if you leave it out there and keep putting people through it. So the ROI comes in a lot of ways. Okay. Oh, and by the way, just doing the LinkedIn bit, that is also hugely valuable, because this is what happens. Here's a profile, a LinkedIn profile, a personal profile. And this is sort of like a before and after, and this is totally organic. So the week before we started these posts, they had 46,000 views okay, it's a month, excuse me, not the week. It's the month before, it was July. Yeah, they had 46,000 views. And the month of August, when we really launched this sprint, and we took control, and we put in a little effort into the LinkedIn bit, we almost doubled the views. So it went from 46 to 71,000 views. And it got a lot of additional engagement. So you can see that there's an extra like 13% bump in engagement. And in shares, like because we put out some good content, and it went from 12 shares to 38 shares from the previous period. You can see that like we put out content, and then we test it, and it's already doing good. It's already doing good. But then we really start to like get the feedback, and we really start to feel it. So towards the third week, it really like kicks in and starts to work. And you could see it in the views, you could see it in the comments, and you could see it in the shares and all the engagement metrics. So it starts out good, but then it falls flat because we're experimenting, we're tweaking, we're just gathering feedback, and then all of a sudden it just takes off. Okay. So I was talking about money, but I didn't get to say how much you would have to pay if you were to sign up with us today. So because we have optimized our processes and run quite a few campaigns like this, we have streamlined everything. And so instead of having you pay upwards of 7K for this campaign, we can do it for a limited time, for a limited number of companies who fit our profile. We can do this for you for 3,900 euros. Okay, just short of 4,000 euros. This is admittedly, so we can't get rich doing this. The reason we're doing this is because if we feel that you'd be a good fit down the line, then we are willing to put in about the 100 hours of work necessary for this. Because even with everything like tuned out and streamlined and set up and ready to go, even with that, we're talking about between 80 to 100 hours on our end. So we're certainly not going to get rich with this. But if we feel that we're culturally and firmographically a good fit, we'd be happy to put in this work just to see if we fit and if we're a good fit. Right. So this is your investment, but it gets a lot better because there are two payment options. You could either pay this reduced sum, or you can have two payment installments of $2,200, euros each. First in the beginning and the other on day 14. And it gets even better than this because we guarantee that you'll be happy. So before we jump in, we'll obviously have a conversation with you. And if we think that we can do a good job for you, if we don't think we can do a good job for you, we're not going to do it. So even though the promise and the price may be catchy, we're just not going to do it if we aren't convinced that we can really kick some ass with you together. And the reason we're not going to do it is because we offer a guarantee, which means that we start working together, you start seeing our content and you start seeing our stuff. And if 2 weeks into the thing, you're not happy, then we're going to refund everything and you get to keep all the materials that we have produced for you up to that point. So the audits, the content, typically we'll have written quite a few pieces of content and we'll have given you the strategy and the exact steps so you can keep it and we'll give you a full refund. That's how confident we are that we can do really well with you. And so you risk nothing. All the risk is on us. But as I said, we're not going to do this for any company who reaches out to us. We have to get to know you first and make sure that we can do a good job for you and deliver for you. Okay. So if you like this, just reach out to us, to me. And it comes on a first come, first serve basis. We cannot start until mid-April. So there would be, even for the first project, there would be about 3 to 4 weeks of waiting, but that's okay because we need to be setting up stuff. And so 26 days later, you will be the happy owner of a go-to-market system that will hopefully deliver a lot for you. So that's all I wanted to say right now. And I'll jump back here and let you guys ask questions. Especially if you can unmute yourself, it's even more fun and just come on. But I realize that this platform, Livestorm, is it's not necessarily so straightforward. So go ahead and type your questions if you got questions, and I'll take a sip of water. It says Larry is typing. Happy to go into greater depth in any of the steps. Okay, you got to run. That's great, Larry. Thank you so much for being around. What tool do we use for the interactive assessments? We have tested two. One is good. The other one is better. The first one is outgrow.co. It's cheaper and it's not nearly as robust and not as fit for this type of campaigns as the other one, which is bucket.io. Just going to type it here. No, it's outgrow.co and bucket.io. And so now we exclusively use bucket.io because it's just better. Yeah. So everyone, if it was a pleasure, I'm glad you were around, and I hope you got some takeaways from this. And of course, we will send you a Content Hub link where you can get this stuff, the recording, the slides with the timestamps, and a lot more. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you so much for coming. This has been a blast, and I hope to talk to you later. Bye bye.